So what is that?
So be a little bit more specific for them, what's put in front of us. Are you requesting they formally put their offer in writing to discuss? Are you able to do that, Matt, or?
So we're not allowed to negotiate when it comes to adopting the law. But we are allowed to consider what the benefits might be of rezoning this parcel. And that could be additional industrial land, increases the tax base, or the developer is voluntarily committing to making improvements, contributions. Again, you know, one example that I can draw on a particular industrial use that created a particular type of fire hazard proposed as part of the process that we're considering here, stockpiling the firefighting chemicals that are necessary, purchasing the equipment, training the volunteers, and making annual contributions to the local fire company because they were creating an unusual, let's call it, chemical hazard that needed to be a response. It could be we don't have people who know how to fight a tall building or a large building fire. You know, again, I can't imagine that that's true. I'm just putting that out there as an example. And our fire companies would need to train whatever. Armstrong World Industries, you know, way back when they built the plant, they organized a fire brigade on site, you know, as part of their contribution to the community. And the first of the first responders were their own employees. You know, that sort of thing. We can consider those things as being proposed, but we can't require them.
But doesn't that happen later on in the process?
Until later, then you just took the words out of my mouth. Until later in the process. But, you know, to be fair, I'm working on a project now where the guy that got the land rezoned flipped it to somebody else, and that somebody else, you know, isn't as community-minded.
Yeah.
You know, those things happen too.
That's exactly one of my big worries.
You
At
know,
the end of the day, this comes down to money. You know, it's all about if property A gets rezoned and there's a benefit there to flip it for another $1 million, it goes to the next owner. That guy's not going to be telling you what these gentlemen are saying, and then it's rezoned. You're not stocking it anymore.
And again, you know, there are ways of dealing with that. I've had properties rezoned back to the original rezoning very quickly.
Can you put conditions on a rezoning?
Now,
Nah, that's okay.
no.
So,
Yeah.
to stop beating around the bush here, tonight's vote, if we put a motion forward, would just to have a public hearing regarding, we're just making a motion to make an advertisement.
To do this all over again,
But advertised.
longer and in more detail, and these fellows will have their witnesses come. They'll have their traffic engineer, they'll have their land planner, their lawyer will organize the...
And their best offers all on paper,
Correct.
and everything on paper, so that we have the public comment.
Correct,
We as supervisors can talk about it in public view.
correct. You know, again, I can only give you examples that I've seen over the course of my experience. I can think of one property, I think it was an East Hempfield property where they were looking to rezone to high-density residential. Before the rezoning was even accomplished, they reported a age restriction on any housing voluntarily, and came in and said, we said we're only going to do 55 and older community. We have voluntarily restricted our property to a 55 and older And, you know, the risk to them was it was gonna stay in agricultural holding, and the farmer was gonna keep farming it, and that restriction meant nothing, but if they moved forward, they had put their money where their mouth was. That's not always possible, but that's an example of where the petitioner has augmented the request with actual commitments that they're permitted to make voluntarily, but we can't condition the approval on a petitioner doing this, that, or the other thing.
In other words, if we do this, then we can see what they voluntarily want to bring to the table.
Then, at that point, we're permitted to negotiate what the roadway improvements are.
When would you, just for my education, when would that take place? Would it take place before we would have a hearing, or take place after, or during?
After the rezoning and during the review of the land development plan.
Right, but I think what you were asking something different, when I misunderstood you.
So it's not coming before the rezoning?
Yeah,
It's not coming before the rezoning.
that's what I think.
So if we move forward to the next step,
Right,
it's gonna be for rezoning.
it's
So
got
if
a name.
it-
It's
If
called,
it gets rezoned,
yeah, it's called contract zoning. We're not permitted to be compensated, so to speak, to
Correct.
rezone the property. And that, you know, compensation would not necessarily be cash dollars, it would be commitments that we've reached.
You get that? It's a lot to digest on your first meeting.
I mean, still, we can only vote on an ordinance, and we're looking at public, landowner, community as a whole.
Right.
And so all we're looking at is the zoning portion, that's it. That's the only thing we can,
The zoning category under the ordinance, so the zoning district that applies. And we would be looking at doing something no sooner than
15th of February.
for a hearing. Until we, there are, I may have said this before, but of course I wouldn't have said it to you, Dan. We're not required to do anything with a request for rezoning, but if we decide to do anything with a request for rezoning, we've got strict requirements that we have to meet at each of those steps. So this is the most formal of the steps. We need to advertise, we need to post the property, we need to send notices in the mail. We need to convene and hold a hearing, so that takes time to put all together and to accomplish, because there has to be 2 advertisements, no closer together than a week, no closer to the meeting than a week, no earlier than 30 days.
Goes back to the planning commission step. It returns to the planning commission as well.
Especially if we're proposing, if we're hearing a proposal to rezone the entire property. That would change the proposal enough that the planning commission should, at least our planning commission should at least take another look.
That's what was in front of the planning commission. The full property.
The township planning commission,
Correct.
by the time it got to
the
the,
ordinance.
but not the ordinance.
Correct. You guys have the full property.
Yeah,
I don't want to be, again, I just want to be fully in the know here. Lorenzo posed a good point. Let's say you're proposing all these things and we have this hearing, it comes to the hearing, it gets rezoned. My job, it'd be almost at that point, me writing it, giving you a blank check with my signature on the bottom, except the blank check is a piece of property. What's to say that that landowner can't go and get somebody else the highest bidder at that point after you've already done this work? And then also, all of the proposals and all of the things that you've been standing up here telling us you're gonna do goes out the window because the landowner was free in their action and went and got somebody else. Is that,
it's, you know,
is there anything to keep
again,
that
it's,
from happening?
it doesn't happen often, but I put it out there just to tell you that you can't condition it on anything,
I understand that.
including development by this developer. Things happen. You know, I just closed a property on the 19th of December where my guy was going to build every one of those 400 houses. He wasn't going to die in a motorcycle accident.
Okay.
You know, and then we had to go out and find the next developer.
Jeff, you got anything?
I think I said what I needed to say.
What's your thoughts, guys?
I would like to see I would like to see actual proposals on paper, but I think the only way, from what we've gathered here this evening, the only way to really do that is to move forward to the next step. So, to that regard, I make a motion to authorize the preparation of an ordinance and the advertisement of a public hearing to consider a rezone of certain property at Game School Road and Stonehill Road as proposed in the petition submitted by CMB Development LLC, RZ 2023-03.
I'll second that. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're sitting hearing us.
Thanks for answering all my questions.
Not at all.
Appreciate it.
No, you threw a lot at you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Q, Air Methods temporary extension.
Can't stand.
Applicant has requested another 90-day extension for the temporary use of the heliports at Stevens Fire Company.
Do we know if they're pursuing with the land development plan or not yet?
Yeah, we had asked for an update on that front. The representative serving as liaison for the project was out of the office unexpectedly. I spoke with another representative who said information would be forthcoming.
Sounds good. I'll make a motion to extend the Air Methods heliport use at Stevens Fire Company for another 90 days. That will end April 17th, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Treasurer's report, list of bills. Jeff, are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I can do that, as long as you're hearing me well enough.
Yep.
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
Okay, we have a total general fund bank account list of bills in the amount of $47,903.85 for the week of December 28th of 2023. Is there any questions there?
No.
If there is, Lorenzo, you'll have to answer that.
No.
Okay, then I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that. Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, and then we have a electronic payment list of bills in the amount of $39,158.66 for police personnel, hero, and longevity payments dated December 27th of 2023. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's the treasurer's report tonight.
Thank you. New business, I'd like to make a recommendation to the board. We have a resolution on max of the 30-minute max rule for public comment period and 5-minute max per person. As you see, that resolution was made in 2016. I'd like to make a recommendation to the board to update that. As you see with the new agenda, there is a public comment at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items, and there's public comment at the end for agenda items. So in reality, if you give the resident 5 minutes total to speak, they can speak for 5 minutes total. My thought was to put a maximum of 10 minutes and remove the 30 minutes, because if 100 residents show up and want to speak, I don't want to set a limit where not everyone can speak and they have to wait till the next meeting. So my thought would be just put a max of 10 minutes and no limit to public comment. If we're here till 3 in the morning, we're here till 3 in the morning.
So one of the things you're allowed to do under the Sunshine Law is direct staff and the solicitor to tee something up for the next agenda. And if you'd like that to happen, we would amend that. We would propose an amended resolution.
We need a motion for that, or just that's my recommendation.
If we hear the consensus, we can do it.
Okay,
So it needs to be on the next agenda?
Well,
correct.
it doesn't need to be on the next agenda, it's just, you can't act on it tonight because of the Sunshine Law. But you're allowed to instruct staff, or the solicitor, or the engineer, or whatever, to see that it gets on a future agenda.
Personally, it's the First Amendment for a reason, so there's a little twinge in my back when we have any limits to anything, but I understand trying to move things
You'll
forward.
do it.
What's that? You know, I've been on both sides, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd like to get rid of that limit at the minimum.
We'll pull something together.
Okay. Got anything for new business, Jeff?
No, nothing for me.
You got anything? All right, old business, anything old? No?
No, this is-
All right.
no, nothing for me.
Public comment, for non-agenda items, please list your name, come up to the front. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. The next Board of Supervisors meeting will meet on Thursday, January 18th at 7 p.m. here at the Township Building. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, have a good evening.
To turn off the music, press 1.
Did you get the email about the straw poll? You didn't get an email?